It is critically, vitally important with this week's astrology to not let your mouth write you checks that you cannot cash. It is important to not make promises, threats, decrees that you cannot energetically back up. It is important to not get so carried away with barking that you get surprised when you get bit. And I say that because this week, Mercury and Mars align in Sagittarius, which can be a very feisty, spunky, fiery burst of energy where we are more inclined to assert ourselves, to speak out on what it is that we believe in, to let someone know when they have us misunderstood or messed up. And while it could be valuable to speak your mind and to speak your truth and to be honest, Sagittarius is a very blunt, honest sign. With Mercury retrograde, there are key details that may be obscured at this particular moment in time. It's a bit like a Chihuahua yapping at a Rottweiler, where the Chihuahua may have very valid points. This is the Chihuahua's domain. How dare the Rottweiler come up to this part of the dog park? So the Chihuahua is mouthing off and yapping, missing a key detail or not fully understanding the size differential at just who this Chihuahua is barking at. And it's not that the Chihuahua is not valid. It's not that you are not valid with what may fire you up this week. But there might be more to the story or more information to be revealed. Or it may just not be a battle that is worthy of your time. Because for some of us, we might be the Rottweiler, where someone is in our ear, in our phone, in our comments, talking about this, that, and the third. And it's just going to be important to be like, they'll see with time. Like, I do not need to waste my energy around trying to battle this Chihuahua. I have other arenas that I need to put my time into. And it's going to be important to check yourself before you wreck yourself this week, because we may get carried away when it relates to our pride. We have a last quarter moon in Leo, and the Scorpio sun will trine Jupiter in Cancer over the weekend. Neither of these influences are bad, but there could be an energy around, who are you yapping at? Who exactly do you think you're barking at? Do you know who I am? And again, you don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You know you're a Rottweiler, you know you're a Chihuahua, you know your morals, you know your values. And it's important to know that no matter how much you bark, no matter how much you fight back or debate back, people who are committed to misunderstanding you will always misunderstand you. And it's important to recognize that and know that you know your heart, you know your values, you know your morals, and some arguments you'll never win. You might win on this particular point, and then they point out this, or you might defend yourself as it relates to this, and they still misunderstand you the next time that you see it. It's important to know that not every battle is worth waging, and not every battle is worth fighting for. And you can get on your soapbox, you can get on your podium, you could broadcast out to your followers, no, you don't understand, it's this and that and this. But there are some people who are just committed to misunderstanding you. And it's important to not waste your energy trying to correct the narrative, or really with it being Scorpio season, to control the narrative around how it is that you are perceived. Also this week, Jupiter retrograde begins, and this is an internal review around what it is that we believe in, what we find meaning within. So there could be something that someone says to you, again, Mercury, Mars, very blunt, very honest. Someone could make a joke to you or make a comment to you that causes you to look in the mirror and be like, could that be true? And to reflect. Again, nobody has the power to narrate your story and decide who you are. At the end of the day, you know your heart, you know your soul, you know your morals, you know your values. But sometimes when something is shared, whether it's constructive criticism or a joke or a comment, sometimes it hits a point that makes you reflect, that makes you turn the lens inward. And maybe even reflecting on, is this something that I find meaning within? Maybe that informs whether this is a matter that you want to stand up for yourself within, assert yourself within. Because for many of us with the Mercury, Mars, and Sagittarius, the topics in which we're inclined to stand up for ourselves, to speak our mind, to speak our truth, we may have very valid points. And it's important to us and our own morals and ethics to communicate that. And yes, with Mercury retrograde, maybe there's details that we will learn in time, but it's important to us to speak out about it. So I'm not saying you have to have a zipper over your mouth and not talk at all. The encouragement is to be mindful and to take that moment for reflection around, is that a joke and an assumption that I feel inclined to speak out about? Is it important to me and my morals and my ethics and who it is that I am to speak out about this, to correct the narrative, to ask more questions? And maybe genuinely can be a teaching opportunity. around when we call out that joke, when we press that point that was made, when we stand up for ourselves in this arena. Maybe there's key information that surfaces that inspires us to view the situation in a different way or view ourselves in a different way. You know, now we've got Mercury and Jupiter retrograde, and so there's a lot to learn. And we do not learn when we are talking. We learn when we are listening. And so there can be a danger this week on getting carried away in the barking, in the yapping, in the speaking out, in the sharing, in the talking. It's not to say that it's not important, but we do not learn anything in the talking. We learn within the listening. And sometimes when we're so fired up about our stance and our perspective, we lose out on the opportunity to learn. So of course, just as we do every single week, we'll be covering everything you need to know about the astrology from November 10th to November 16th, 2025. But before we do, take a step inside my cosmic cafe. And you know that my ruling planet is retrograde because it's the way that I've been recording for this long, and I did not even realize that I did not make myself a beverage. One moment, sometimes you really just have to laugh because you can't make this up. And I swear I did not do this purposefully, but our beverage of the week is brain juice. And dear God, do I need some brain juice. Clearly, I'm feeling a little wonky. My ruling planet Mercury is now retrograde. And this can be an influence that sometimes makes us a little forgetful, a little spacey. So thank God that I have this beverage that I forgot to grab. I've been doing Magic Monday since 2020. Granted, it has taken many iterations, but I don't think I've ever forgotten to get a drink. It's so interesting when there's something that you do every single day and one day you just forget to do it, or you're doing your makeup and you skipped a step, or you're driving to work and you forgot something. It's like, I do this every single day. Like, why do I feel so wonky about it today? Nevertheless, thank God the brain juice has arrived to the cosmic corner of the internet. Clearly I need it. And I want to be so clear, this is not a sponsorship. This is not an advertisement. This is not even necessarily a recommendation. Like, it's important for you to know when you get your horoscope from me that I've got my Mercury and Mars in Aquarius. So sometimes I just do things just for the plot, or I'll just like buy things just because they look weird and they're on sale. So sometimes it really is just a shot in the dark. I don't know how this beverage is going to be, but this was at my local supermarket and it was on sale for $3. And I was just curious. I knew Mercury retrograde was approaching and I was like, I do need some brain juice. This little mind of mine does not feel like it's firing on all cylinders. And this claims that it's a natural daily brain supplement that contains the proprietary brain power blend, essential vitamins, nutrients, amino acids your brain needs every day. Then it lists a bunch of things. I guess there's green tea leaf for clean brain energy without the jitters or the crash. For some reason, it also supports the production of dopamine. Okay, that's great. It says to shake it. I'm scared it's gonna like explode. Okay. Cheers, loves. Welcome to the Cosmic Cafe. It actually tastes really good. Like a grape situation. Oh, it's lavender tea and dragon fruit. Okay, good to know. So brain juice, hopefully from this point onward, I'm going to be so locked in. So I have now collected and sipped my brain juice. That will join me for the rest of the episode. Let me know below what you are sipping on to start your week. And my loves, I'm so excited that this is week 2 of Galactic Give Backs, which is essentially a way that the cosmic corner of the internet is giving back to the world. All of the ad revenue will go to a nonprofit. This week, the ad revenue last week went to World Central Kitchen, and next week we will vote upon here as a cosmic collective. I want to apologize for a little bit of a oopsie. You know, this brain is not firing correctly with Mercury retrograde, hence why we have the brain juice, all of the things. But essentially last week I'd highlighted that we would have a poll where we would be able to vote on week 2. That will be the case for week 3. I want to make sure the cause that is spotlighted, we all feel like we are voting on and being able to come together in order to support. But because of timing, basically I filmed these ahead of time because I have an editor. Shout out Alex. And so I have to film ahead of time. And so basically at the time of filming, Magic Monday just went live. So there really wasn't adequate time to hold a poll. In fact, at the time of filming, there was only one nonprofit that was nominated just because I am filming this very close to when Magic Monday went live. So I will be moving forward with that nonprofit this week. And then next week, the nonprofit will be the one that we all voted on. And it just makes me so happy to see your all's enthusiasm as well, to know that we can make a difference even in small ways, that we can get our cosmic horoscope as well as support children, which is the focus of this week's Galactic Give Back. This week's ad revenue will go to benefit the Luskin Orthopathic Institute for Children in alliance with UCLA Health. They are an organization that is dedicated to providing expert care to children, regardless of immigration status, regardless of finances. They really seek to be a safe space to really be able to give world-class treatment to every child that needs it. I want to give a shout out to TC22 Home 42 user who nominated that. And like I highlighted, that was the only one that was nominated at the time of my filming. Very well may be new ones on the channel. Like I highlighted, I film ahead of time. Something that I did not think about last week when I said we would all be able to vote on week 2. But I'm so excited to be able to support this nonprofit. Such a beautiful mission statement. Nobody on this planet should be denied medical care or feel fearful in seeking out medical care, especially at a time like this. So thank you so much for that nomination. Thank you for all your nominations. There's likely more on last week's episode. And make sure to head over to my channel to vote on the poll for week 3. And let's go ahead and take it into vibe check of the week. I lit some incense to set the vibes. I also took a sip of my brain juice to set the brain or help the brain. And I realized that it says right there, clear as day, lavender dragon fruit. And the way that I sipped it and I was like, tastes like grape. Then it was investigating in the ingredients like, oh, lavender dragon fruit. Like, girl, yeah, lavender dragon fruit. As it says. Thank you for bearing with your Mercury ruled astrologer. Let's get into vibe checks. So if you are new to Magic Monday, firstly, I'm not usually so spacey. Let's start there. Although some people would probably argue against that. We're all arguing quite a bit with Mercury on Mars. But this is essentially a segment on the channel where we compare the astrology of the week to a real life situation. This is meant to be a metaphoric device to bring the astrology to life. Because we can talk all day long about Mercury, Mars, and Sagittarius with Mercury Retrograde. We could talk about Jupiter Retrograde and Cancer. We could talk about these energies, but Vibe Check of the Week seeks to answer, what does this mean for me? Or what does this look like within real life as I navigate my errands, my tasks, my to-dos, my family, my work, my relationships? I'm not saying that this exact situation will play out, but if you tune into some of the dynamics, the themes, the vibes, you may see similar ones surface. So we are going to say that this week you are going to a family gathering. We'll say that it is a family dinner. And you grew up in a very religious household. And it just so happens upon getting older, you've done a lot of soul searching, you've done a lot of reflection, and that religion is not something that you personally abide by. And in fact, you've done a lot of religious deprogramming, in a sense, around contemplating what this religion and the doctrines made you feel about yourself and thus made you feel about the world. Being able to look inwardly around, how has this shaped me? How has this made me internalize shame or guilt for the ways that I am different or the different things that I believe in? It's taken a lot of unlearning. It's taken a lot of deprogramming, especially when this was embedded within you so deeply and embedded within your family so deeply. And we'll say your family is still within that particular religion. And there is a feeling that you feel whenever you go to these family gatherings around feeling different, having different belief systems, and sometimes feeling judged, sometimes feeling like you have to hide who it is that you are, sometimes feeling like you cannot share certain details about your life because it does not align with the doctrine around how it is that you should be living or who you should be. And so going into this dinner, you do have some trepidation and you are on guard. Like, you've done so much work unlearning what it is that you've learned. And it's not just about the religion, it's what it made you feel like about yourself and how you felt like you had to hide and conform and abide by this understanding of how you should live or the right way to live. And you've done so much work around it that, yes, you are sensitive to it. You are sensitive to little snide remarks that your cousins make about your dating life. You are sensitive to the looks that your mom gives you across the dinner table. You are aware of it, and perhaps you are a bit on guard. And at this season of your life, you're no longer hiding in shame. Like, that has been part of your journey. You've been at dinner parties where you kept your mouth shut, or you even lied about certain details of your life, or you tried to play into the role of the perfect religious person in this particular religious institution. Like, you've tried to play by their rules, but where it is that you are now, you no longer feel like you have to do that. And so there is a sense of solidity around your own belief systems and around who it is that you are. And with that solidity comes a little bit of fiery energy where you might have just took it before, taken the snide remarks from your cousin, taken the side eyes from your siblings, from your mom, from whoever, but you're in a space where you're like, no, I want to push you on that. I want to be honest with you. I want to stand up for myself. Just because I believe something different than you do does not make me wrong. And I'm sick of feeling like I have to be hidden in order to feel accepted or in order to feel like I'm living life right. And so admittedly, you do go into this dinner just thinking about all of the past comments and the looks and the shame and the guilt, like everything that has gotten you to this point. Keep in mind, with Mercury retrograde, a lot of us are walking down memory lane. And sometimes what we find on memory lane pisses us off. To be forthright, infuriates us. Mercury retrograde aligns with Mars. This is kind of like the astrology around when you're in bed, like 6 hours after a certain encounter, and you think of the perfect comeback. You know that energy where you're like, why didn't I say this? Or I could have said this, or I could have done this. Sometimes we think about certain things from the past and we get fired up around, how dare my cousin say that about the way that I live? How dare my parents give me that particular look? How dare my siblings judge me just because I don't want to go to their particular religious institution? You have all of these past encounters building within you, and you go in a little fired up around that. Now that I've done so much work on myself and I feel comfortable and confident with who I am and what I believe, I am not going to let that slide. And so at the dinner table, it just so happens that your aunt makes a certain remark. And because it's layered with so much history and so many looks and so many comments and so much judgment and so much shame, you fire off on, we'll call her Aunt Marcia. I swear, have I had an Aunt Marcia before in our friendship? I think we have had an Aunt Marcia. I don't know. I just go with the name that comes through. Apologies to any Marcias out there. Deepest apologies. But we will say that Aunt Marcia says a comment and we fire off. We use that as an opportunity to voice all of the rhetoric that we have been stuffed within, all of the good points that we have around the way that we live and the hypocrisies that they have within their particular religion, and how it is that you have had so much embedded and internalized guilt and shame because of certain things that you were taught, and because of this familial expectation around this is the only way to live, this is the only way to believe. So you basically utilize this one comment from Aunt Marcia as an invitation to let it all out there. And you are very blunt and very cutting with your words. You know, with Mercury aligning with Mars, our words can be our sharpest weapon. We can really hit someone where it hurts. And Aunt Marcia could be like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. And maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But with Mercury retrograde, sometimes there could be an energy where either we misunderstood something or we read into it because of the history, and we were just looking for that invitation to fire off. And maybe it's because you've suppressed your truth. You've held your truth. You've just taken the snide comments and the side eyes and all of that. Of course, you're sensitive to it because there's always been this energy around you're wrong and the way that you live is bad and you should be ashamed for who it is that you are. And you're finally in a place where you're like, no. Like, I have really decoded, I've deprogrammed, I've reviewed this religion and its place within my life and how I've been brought up and how I want to be moving forward. This does not align with me. And maybe when I was 7 years old at this table, 10 years old at this table, 15, 19, maybe all of these other years, I didn't feel as grounded in what I believe as I do now. And now I want to vocalize. I want to stand up for myself in all of those times that I just had to take it and feel wrong and bad for being the way that I am and believing what I believe. And we'll say that while this does make the dinner table a little bit awkward, a little bit uncomfy, we will say that it does genuinely create a space for openness. Like I said, this week is not just around talking, it's also around listening. And sometimes when something has been built so much, we create this entire narrative and story. It's not to say that it's not valid, but sometimes we build this entire narrative around it. And sometimes in that openness, there's an energy around, oh no, we don't have any problems with the way that you live. That's not what I meant by that particular comment. Or we don't have any problem that you don't go to church with us. Or we don't have any problem about the way that you date, the way that you look, the way that you eat, the way that you navigate your life. Or that is not something that I expect from you. And in that, it gives you a sense of freedom around the full permission slip to be who you are. Not that you needed them to give it to you, but you said your part and you heard their part. And now it's kind of like all out in the open. And now in future dinners, there's not this like hypersensitivity around what they mean by this and what they mean by this. Because sometimes when we've been hurt, when we felt shamed, when we felt shut out, when we felt like we could not speak our truth, we do have a tendency to read into things, read into every snide look. And it's not to say that you imagined it or that it's all in your head, but sometimes when you just vocalize it around, here it is, it's all out on the table. Now it's just like, I'm just going to be as I am. And the side eyes, the side comments, that's a them thing. My work, my responsibility is to be a me thing and to be solid in what I believe in and what I find meaning within and who I am with the last quarter moon in Leo and sun trining Jupiter, with the creative, authentic, unique soul that I am, even if I'm different than where I came from, or I have different beliefs than those around me. I have full permission to shine. I have full permission to be who it is that I am. So we will take it into our day-by-day analysis. We'll, of course, come back to this vibe check and talk about how the astrology weaves into that picture that I just painted you. But let's go ahead and take it into the astrology for Monday, November 10th. On Monday, November 10th, the day and thus the week starts off with the moon in Cancer. And with the moon in rulership, we are more sensitive to the ebbs and flows, to the energetic and emotional undercurrents that really impact every situation, every dinner that we're a part of, every room that we enter into, especially with the sun also transiting a fellow water sign, Scorpio. Sometimes when you're tapped into energy, you can feel and sense things so deeply, even if they're not said or even if nothing was done. And sometimes it's hard to be present when energetically you're sensing into something so much differently. Like as a fellow water sign, I'm a Pisces, I will literally have a hard time hearing someone if their energy is not matching up with what it is that they're saying. I'm like, your energy is screaming at me. Regardless of whatever you're saying, your energy is telling on you and your energy is like being the loudest thing in the room. And, you know, we are sensitive, intuitive beings. This was woven into the vibe check around the energy of all of those dinners that you've been at where you sense and you feel and you tune into, where, yes, it was just one slight look. It was just one moment, one sigh, but you felt it. You felt the energy. And sometimes we feel crazy or too emotional or too hypervigilant to everything that is happening. But it's important to know that with the moon in Cancer, yes, things are shifting and we're more attuned to the ebbs and flows, the waxes and wanes, the emotional temperature of the room really is the vibe here. And it's important not to invalidate what it is that you're feeling, but seek to ground yourself or to do things that nurture yourself and nourish yourself around, okay, it's not that I made up that snide comment, but I don't need to internalize it. I could just focus on my particular meal and connecting with the family members who I'm really excited to connect with. Like, you can validate what it is that you're picking up on while also not allowing it to poison your dinner or your evening or your gathering altogether. Like, I've been at parties where it's just so clear that someone does not like me. And I've allowed that to impact my entire evening. I've been so hyper-focused on that or so hyper-vigilant of that particular emotional dynamic, regardless of what they were saying to me or how they were acting fake or whatever. But sometimes the more that we're tuned into something, the more that we check on it. Or even if we're just catching a weird vibe from someone online or a coworker, sometimes it can like lead to an energy of obsessiveness or being very glued to what that person is doing and how they are treating us. And there's an ask to bring yourself back. So when I have observed that, what I typically do is bring myself back around, am I having fun? Am I enjoying myself? Rather than worrying that this person thinks I'm laughing too loud and I'm so annoying, let me just focus on laughing and just spending time with people who I'm really excited to see or spend time with. So you can clock something intuitively without allowing it to absorb you or consume you is really the energy here. You can detach from it and choose to shine anyway, choose to show up anyway, choose to laugh loud anyway, choose to be the annoying astrology girl at the party anyway, whatever it may be. There really is a permission slip this week around, yeah, you're going to be too intense for some people. You're going to laugh too loud for some people. You're going to be annoying for some people. You're not for everyone. We're in Scorpio season. This is the season of intensities. You're not here to be for everyone. And it's sad, those moments that you feel like you have to dim your shine, not laugh as loudly, not be as joyful, not share your astrology facts as boldly because you are tuned into or hypervigilant to the people who are not on the same wavelength. Like, connect to the people who are. I mentioned that just because yesterday we had the Cancer moon square Chiron, so sometimes we could feel a little sensitive. The Cancer moon aligns with Jupiter around 1 a.m. and then trine Saturn in Pisces around 1:30. So again, tune into your own joy, jubilance, jolly energy with Jupiter, and with the trine to Saturn, allow that to stabilize you and ground you, whether it's out at dinner around, okay, getting a weird vibe from Aunt Marcia or this particular cousin. Let me plug into this meal, this conversation. Let me ground myself. As well as if I feel myself getting taken somewhere, bring myself back to this present moment. And I mention that because the Cancer moon trines Neptune and Pisces. And so sometimes we can get a little lost in the sauce. You know, Mercury just stationed retrograde yesterday. And sometimes with Cancer moon, idealizing the past, fantasizing about the past with the trine to Neptune. And sometimes Neptune energy could be a dream come true. And sometimes it could be a nightmare where you can romanticize past seasons of your life and idealize them. Or you can think about the worst family dinners, those worst moments, and exaggerate them, project them as though they're playing on a movie over and over. And you've got to be mindful where it is that you are being pulled somewhere and ground yourself, bring yourself back. I want to highlight we don't have that much Earth in the cosmos other than now Uranus, which is hardly the most stabilizing energy. And when we don't have Earth, we can struggle to just be here now. And with the energy of Cancer moon, trining Neptune and Pisces, we can be feeling like we're carried away from something from our past, whether it is romanticizing an ex, whether it is thinking about the past times within our family unit that we've been hurt. And it can feel so real when we replay those memories that we could feel like we're there again. And the encouragement is to remember to be here now. And typically the best way to do that is to connect to your senses. Put butter on the bread at this family dinner, or go and talk to someone at this party who you're excited to spend time with and really be present for it. Like, ground yourself in this particular moment, especially if you feel yourself getting swept away by the Neptunian waves. The moon enters Leo at 9:34 a.m. It goes on to oppose Pluto midday, which could bring about power struggles and people operating from ego, operating from pride that may be alive in the earlier part of the week, especially with the last quarter moon in Leo. Sometimes our pride causes us to mouth off or to bark, like, who do they think they are coming into my side of the dog park, right? Do they know who I am? And ego is necessary within this experience. You know, a lot of times within the spiritual community, it's like we need to transcend the ego. It's like we have it for a reason and we have our own identity for a reason. But it's also knowing no one really knows you and the challenges you've overcame and your heart and your soul as you do. So you don't need to be so bothered when someone does misunderstand you or underestimate you. Like, Mercury retrograde could even just be the vibe around, they'll see in time. If anybody knows who I'm talking about, let's not call this person out, okay? Because I'm really not salty about it. But there was an astrologer who came for me and was basically saying that I'm not a great astrologer and that the only reason that I have any traction online is because of the way I look. Which I took as a compliment. I was like, wait, you think I'm pretty? Because To me, I'm like, you can say I'm a bad astrologer. You will see in time. I feel like my body of work speaks for itself. I don't need to defend myself. I don't need to explain myself to you. I don't need to walk with you through all of the clients that I've worked with, all of the classes that I've taken, all of the people that I've studied under. I just don't need to prove myself to you. Like, you'll see in time. I truly was not offended. I just took the, oh, you think I look good? Okay, great. Because oftentimes we feel the most inclined to like stick up for ourselves and fire back when it is something that we are sensitive about. So if I was feeling all this self-doubt around, am I even a good astrologer after studying this topic for like nearly 2 decades now? I don't sweat it because I feel so solid in that. Like I feel so grounded in what it is that I've learned. So it really doesn't affect me. There's other comments if it's something that I do feel insecure about, that I may be a little bit more fired up about, that I may feel inclined to have to stick up for myself and prove myself. For other things, it's like, they'll see in time. I don't need to waste my breath arguing or trying to defend or trying to assert. I'm just going to take that you think I'm pretty and carry on. So being mindful of that, if someone has a very intense, extreme reaction where you're like, whoa, it's not that serious, it could be a sore spot. And sometimes the people who are the most insecure present as they are the most essentially egotistical. Like sometimes that is a mask that is worn to hide one's insecurities. Again, if you feel solid in who you are and what you're about, you really don't feel like you have to do power plays or competing with other people or wasting all of your energy fighting off on this and that. You just feel solid in who you are. And so for some of you, you could be interacting with someone who is like that, who's trying to prove themselves, prove that they're the biggest and the baddest, who wants everybody else to pet their ego and to feed them validation. Like you could witness that. Or you yourself could feel a little threatened. You could feel a little jealous or insecure by somebody else. So looking out for that midday, the Leo moon trines Mars in Sagittarius just before 6 p.m. PST. And so there's an energy around not trying to be the best, but seeking to be your best, because there's always going to be someone who's doing better than you, looking better than you, achieving more than you. Like even with my little spiel earlier, it's not me saying, oh, I'm the best astrologer ever in the world. It's just that it's something I feel solid around, not in an egotistical, narcissistic way. I just know what I've put into it. And it's something that I feel very confident within. Confidence is not the energy around I'm the very best in the world, because it's hinging your own view of yourself upon how other people are doing. It's giving your power away. And it really is discouraging that there is always someone prettier in the world than us, making more money than us, more successful than us. If we can only feel confident until that is the case, it's a losing battle, because there will always be someone who is doing better than us. Like true confidence is not hinged upon being the prettiest person in the room, the smartest person in the room, the richest person in the room, what have you. Like with the energy of Leo moon trining Mars in Sagittarius, it's being fired up around living your best life and being your best and knowing who it is that you are and taking action from that heart-centered place, from that soulful place, and tuning into what you can control. You know, the Leo moon does square Venus in Scorpio at 6:44 p.m. PST, which could be showing up for some individuals around this conflict around whether you want to be seen or remain hidden. Like there could be an energy around wanting to express yourself and shine your light, but then also how dangerous that can feel, how vulnerable it can make you feel. And the Scorpio sun wanting to hide away back in the shadows. And sometimes that push and pull, if you are a creative person or you have a desire where you want to be in the spotlight, kind of, but then you kind of don't. Like that push pull around, do I want to be seen? Do I not? There could be something like that. Like I want to create and share my art, but I also don't want to deal with being perceived. Like there could be a little bit of a push pull around that. But the Leo moon trining Mercury that evening as well really asks you to write because you love it, create because you love it, post the picture because you love it. When you love something and you're passionate about something and you're creating something, that is the most magnetic thing of all. And of course, it can be painful to be seen. I mean, we're in Scorpio season right now. Sometimes we want to stay in the shadows, and it's not that all of us need to be visible or need to be seen. But when you love it, it becomes so much less scary. It's like, I love this book, and maybe people will understand it, maybe they won't. I love it. And so I want to put it out there. It makes it feel a little less vulnerable putting something out there, because it's always dangerous when we put something out there And we feel like it's a slay if people loved it, and it's a flop if people didn't like it. Share what it is that you love. Express what it is that you love. People may get it, they may not. Sometimes people just don't see the vision. But there is a unique sort of pride when you liked creating something and you loved how it turned out and you put it out into the world. It helps you detach from how it is perceived and how you are perceived. On Tuesday, 11/11, I want to highlight that Jupiter retrograde in Cancer begins today at 8:41 a.m. PST. And with Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, the sign of home and family, this is why the vibe check was this energy of a family gathering and just the energy of reviewing what it is that you have believed or internalized around ethics and morals and religion and the right way to live. Jupiter governs these themes. And retrograde brings the energy inward. It's a reflective energy. So it's contemplating, why do I believe what I believe? And was it because of family? Was it because of tradition? And it's important with every stage in our life that we really reflect, like, is this something that I have faith within? And sometimes reprogramming and repatterning ourselves in order to build a belief system that feels really true to ourselves and very nurturing, very nourishing. I think it's fascinating that Jupiter, the planet of faith and belief, exalts in Cancer, the sign that is associated with mothering and nurturing and soothing. I think it can be very soothing to have a belief system, a way of viewing the world, a roadmap of what has meaning for us that pours into us, that nurtures us. It can be something so soothing to have some sense of faith, some bigger picture to guide us onward. And that doesn't need to be the same person to person. It's just of my belief that it can be very soothing to have something to believe in or some way to make sense of the world. I'm Jupiterian, as I highlighted. I'm a Pisces. And so ever since I was a little girl, I've always needed something to believe in. And not in a really intense way at all, like in the vibe check, but I did grow up in a religious environment. That is not necessarily how I live my life currently. This vibe check is not true to life at all whatsoever. I do not have an Aunt Marcia. My family is very supportive of me and what I do, and I feel very grateful for that. But ever since I was a little girl, I've needed something to believe in. Like, I experimented with being atheist, and it wasn't a fit for me. Me personally, no shade to anyone who abides by that. It didn't click. It didn't gel with me, my system, my worldview in terms of how I was doing day to day. Me personally, I'm not judging anyone for what they believe in, what their religion is, so long as it promotes love and does not put harm on other humans or create people to feel like they have to hide who they are, have a lot of guilt or shame about who it is that they are. I'm all for it. Believe what you want to believe and believe in what nurtures you, what nourishes you. Because when I experimented with atheism, it didn't gel. I've always had a connection with the universe ever since I was a little girl, and I've always needed that in order to feel soothed and calm. It's like, I do not think it's a coincidence for me personally, again, just speaking from personal experience, the time that I was dabbling with atheism was the time that I was the most emotionally unwell in my life. Like, I need something to believe in. Like, that is just how I choose to live my life. And you and I can argue all day long, and a lot of people will argue all day long with Mercury on Mars this week around what happens when we pass away, what have you. But it's my personal perspective that we have to align with the belief system that works for us, that brings us the most peace, serenity, meaning, perspective as we navigate this world. Because all of the other debates and things like that, we don't know what is going to happen. We don't know if there's one sole truth out there. We could debate it all day long, and perhaps we will with Mercury on Mars. But at the end of the day, you have to review what it is that you believe in and contemplate, does this nourish me? Does this support me in being more generous to the world at large and having more trust and having more faith at large? And it's even just like contemplating, maybe you're part of a certain religion and astrology is a no-no. And you're like reviewing, does this make me feel more connected to myself? Does it not? And is there a place in which these themes can coexist and work together? Only you can decide that for yourself. And that's the energy of Jupiter retrograde, reviewing what it is that you believe in. And with this retrograde in Cancer, potentially investigating if your belief systems nourish you, as well as your family's belief systems or certain traditions, and if they align for you, if it's wisdom that you want to take with you moving forward. because there's a lot within my religious background that I still really honor and still utilize. There's some themes that are not resonant and aligned, but there's a lot that is. Like, I still have a close connection with God. I'm so glad that I've been praying ever since I was little, talking to God ever since I was little. Like, there's a lot that I appreciate within it, but I've had to review in order to build a belief system that really nurtured me and soothed me and felt right. Like, Cancer is also around intuition. So what feels right to you? Like, really tuning into your own internal compass, your own moral compass at that. Jupiter retrograde could also be a review of that. And knowing that no one can tell you the right way for you to live. Only you can do that. And sometimes due to programming and how we grew up and what was expected, we can have a mismatch around, I feel like this, but I was told I had to be like this. And sometimes that can create guilt and shame. And sometimes feeling like we have to hide who we are, which I want to mention because today we have the last quarter moon in Leo. And so there could be a tension with the last quarter moon. What parts of myself do I keep submerged in the shadows with the Scorpio sun? And what parts of myself do I want to share and shine out with the Leo moon? And where is it that I feel integrated as a person? Because sometimes we get fragmented, like our sense of self and identity gets fragmented, where we're one way at the family dinner with our family, and we're one way when we're at work, and we're one way when we're with our families. Of course, there's different code of conduct when it relates to all of these situations and all of these connections, but it's different when fundamentally you are fragmented, like it's different versions of yourself, feeling like you have to play into what people expect you to be. But it shows up in us feeling very fragmented. There's a difference between showing up more professionally here or more free to crack the silly jokes when we're our friends. That is different than fundamentally feeling like we live a double life or a triple life. Being very fragmented as a drain of our energy. And maybe that's how you've lived in the vibe check before. You've hidden certain parts of yourself. You've just been like, well, I just need to grin and bear it at the dinner table. And it's just like one dinner and I don't have to navigate every day of my life with Aunt Marcia. I could just play into who they expect me to be. But it takes a lot from you to live a life that is not authentic, to play into what people expect you to be. And sometimes we have to do so for self-preservation or protection in some situations. But this last quarter moon in Leo is really this desire around wanting to show up authentically, even if that's a bit extreme with the Scorpio sun energy or a bit intense. You know, people will always think things are extreme and intense if they don't understand it. Right? And the Scorpio sun energy is around, I'm not for everyone. You know, my belief systems may not be for everyone with Jupiter retrograde. And that's okay, because I'm here to be me. The last quarter moon in Leo could also be some sort of crisis point around needing to let go of ego, let go of pride. Sometimes we get into a fiery debate because it's what we believe. The alignment happens tomorrow in the sign Sagittarius. But sometimes it's this energy around, no, I will not feel validated and valued and enough until you see me in the way I want you to see me. And that can waste a lot of your energy, like fighting with Aunt Marcia to see it your way or see the person that you are. And sometimes people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. And you're going to waste your energy looking for this deep sense of acceptance and validation from people who just don't have the resources or the ability to meet you on those levels. You know, Scorpio season, we're in deep soul diver season, and not everybody feels comfortable swimming in the depths. They're meeting you deeply and intensely. And if you are waiting to validate yourself or to feel accepted yourself until someone can see you in all that you are, you may be waiting a long time. And the last quarter moon in Leo is around, I don't need your applause. I don't need your validation. I don't need you to understand every single layer of me for me to understand me or to celebrate me or to cheerlead me. And so some could be letting go of the need for applause or validation or outward acceptance. Some individuals could be letting go of pride. You know, if you're in an argument with someone this week, being very mindful, it's not your ego that feels like you have to defend yourself or prove this particular point. Like sometimes our ego takes a hit when we view a situation from a soul, right? Or sometimes if there's like a breakup, there's an energy around, I want to be doing better than them, or I want to just know that they want me and they can't have me. Sometimes our ego's bruised. And this could even show up around a petty dispute with a friend, with your partner, where you have to decide, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Like your ego could have taken a hit, and pride could cause you to want to bring up the same argument or point something out that always frustrates you. But sometimes you have to see something from a bigger perspective, from a higher perspective around, is this the hill I want to die on, so to speak? On Wednesday, November 12th, at 3:15 p.m., Mercury and Mars in Sagittarius will align. And it's important to note that while they are located in the same portion of the sky at this present moment in time, they are meeting each other in opposite directions. Mars is direct in Sagittarius and Mercury is retrograde in Sagittarius. And so with Mercury and Mars, this is a feisty, fiery energy. Mars enlivens and activates any planet that it interacts with. And so with Mars on Mercury, this is activating our minds and our mouths. So first, for my overthinkers, there could be a lot of mental energy. It could be very hard to settle down, to turn your mind off. You could be like, really like, please, the thoughts, they just keep coming. And like I said, with Mercury retrograde, we could be thinking about our past. So potentially even ruminating about our past or getting infuriated about something from our past with Mercury retrograde aligning with Mars. Thinking of the perfect comeback to an argument that you had when you were in 7th grade. Around, I should have told that bully this and that. You know, sometimes we replay situations and position ourselves as the hero and think of us delivering the perfect comeback and everybody in the cafeteria cheered and lifted us up, which again, is not realistic. But sometimes we think about things and we're infuriated. Sometimes when we are in a position of power now, or we feel more solid in who we are and what we believe, we are more inclined to speak up about things that maybe we felt more shy about prior. Sometimes there's a situation where it's like, I really should have told that person about themselves. Like, I don't know why I didn't call them out about this and that. So there could be an energy of like regret around, I could have said this. But it's also important to know that typically we regret more what we did say rather than what we didn't say. Like, I'm all about getting things out in the open. This is a very honest, blunt alignment. So people could be very honest and very straight up with you. Constructive criticism could bring a little bit of a wince, but be something that is genuine wisdom that inspires you to move forward. There could be a real argument that you have with a partner that frees both of you in order to be more honest as you proceed forward. There could be a fiery family dinner conversation that makes a little bit of awkwardness, how real you were, but allows an energy of transparency. Like sometimes it is good to say the thing, but words cannot be unsaid. You know, they say it's like a toothpaste tube. You could squeeze that toothpaste out and you can't put it back. And our words are like that. So my encouragement is moderation this week in terms of being thoughtful and intentional about what you say. Because some people may find this is a situation that's been ongoing and this is the week that you find your voice, that you have the awkward conversation, that you say the thing, that you stand up for yourself. And this is not my discouragement not to do so. I would just say, review what you say before you say it. Ensure that it is really in alignment with what you want to express. Because once you say something, you cannot unsay it. And some people are going to be very mouthy. There could be an energy of barking your way into a dog fight that you are not able to sustain. This is not me advocating for dog fights. Let me be so clear. It's just important that our bark could get us into trouble this week. We could say, I just think it's funny that, and then waste a lot of energy getting absorbed into this drama or this battle. We could be more inclined to fire off on this person or take our frustration off on our partner and just observe that the more that we feed this energy of frustration and anger, the more of it that exists. We could feel like we're mentally in a more like inflamed, fired up space. My encouragement with Mercury Mars, as someone who has Mercury Mars within my birth chart, physical activity is very helpful when Mercury and Mars get together. You can replay all of the things that you could have said, could have fired back to your boss, to your colleague, to your coworker while you are kickboxing, and allowing yourself to center yourself as a hero here while still maintaining your job. I'm wondering if I should share this story. The energy of this astrology around, do I say it? Do I not say it, is so real. I will say, as someone who has Mercury and Mars within my birth chart, sometimes my mouth has gotten me into trouble. And just because something is witty, just because something is funny, just because someone was sassy to you does not mean that you have to say the thing. I'm being a little verbose this week. Apologies. I guess Mercury Mars has me chatty. But I will just say that my mouth accidentally got me into a situation where now I randomly have an arch nemesis that I did not want. But my mouth got me into a beef that I'm like, that was such an unnecessary beef. Like, I really do not want an arch nemesis. I want peace within my life, right? But essentially, when I was in college, I was part of a sorority. And we had like a sorority advisor. And she was a flight attendant. I was interested in being a flight attendant. So I had asked her and inquired on some of the ins and outs of being a flight attendant. And it was finals week. I was so stressed out. I had a million things going on with extracurriculars and my schoolwork. There was also something personal that had happened. I don't remember what, but I just remember feeling very fragile emotionally. All of my energy was just consumed by studying and just keeping all of the arenas of my life going. And if you're part of a sorority, you know that there's all of these things that are mandatory. Like, you cannot miss it. No matter how much schoolwork you have, no matter how many personal things you're going through, you have to show up. And I was on leadership, so I doubly had to show up. But the advisor pulls me aside after I'm having this week and says, you know, if you want to be a flight attendant, you're going to have to learn how to look put together and how to do your makeup and how to do your hair and how to look presentable. And I was triggered. I was having a week that I was overwhelmed and drained. And I was still wearing, like, we had to wear dresses and flats to meetings. Like, I was wearing all of the clothes. I just wasn't wearing makeup. And yeah, maybe my hair was a little bit messy. Sue me, literally sue me. I'm here trying to get education and you're telling me that I need to be wearing makeup and hair. Granted, she probably had a point. If I wanted to go down flight attendant, I would probably have to learn how to do my hair and makeup and look good all of the time. But it just infuriated me and it pushed a button because I feel like as women, we just have so much pressure on ourselves to always look perfect and look flawless. And to me, my priorities were my education. My priorities were handling the personal matters that were ongoing. My priorities were still showing up for my leadership responsibilities. My priority was not to put on mascara and put 45 minutes that I could have been studying into curling my hair. Sue me. Can you tell I'm still a little mad about this? That's the thing. Mercury retrograde on Mars. Some of you could find yourself randomly mad about something that happened years ago when she was basically saying, like, you would have to do this and you'd have to do this and you'd have to, like, learn how to be presentable. I said, well, I'm not wearing a bra. Would I have to wear a bra too? She was horrified. She was someone who was very, like, prim and proper and together. And she was appalled, I think is the right word. She literally gave me a look and walked away. And now I have an arch nemesis. Now I have a random arch nemesis who really just caught me on the wrong day. It's not that she didn't have a point. Like, honestly, I probably could have learned something from that. That's the thing with Mercury retrograde. There are things that we can learn. Like within the vibe check, within that family dinner, there might be things that your family shares with you and you're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Or, oh, I never viewed it from that vantage point. Like, sometimes we can learn something. And I could have definitely learned something. I could have kept my mouth shut. That particular comment did not have to be voiced out in the world. And that's what happens when our ego gets hurt. I was bruised. I was like, oh, you think I look bad? So I probably could have learned something from that experience. But instead, I opened my mouth. So I can't unsay that, you know, and any potential path where I could have been a flight attendant got shot down in that particular moment. That is someone I will never be able to list as a reference, clearly, because of this beef that I started. Be mindful before you open a can of worms, and you also have a random arch nemesis. I'm sure that person does not ever think of me. And maybe that was the universe just making sure that I would go forth into this path of astrology. So maybe an alternate universe, I would be up above on Southwest Air, giving you some pretzels and a Coca-Cola. You never know. Had I been able to secure that reference or keep my mouth shut in order to maintain a good relationship with that person. Anyways, all I'm saying, we can never unsay it. And sometimes when we don't say something in the moment and then we ruminate on it later, I'm sure in that world, I probably would have thought of that and been like, I should have said something sassy. Like, sometimes we regret not saying the thing. Sometimes we regret saying the thing. But words cannot be unsaid. Technically, I could have maybe called her up years later and been like, you know, I didn't like this and that. Petty. It was a petty thing. And all I'm saying this week is being very mindful before you get absorbed by a petty argument, a petty dispute. Some of them may not be petty. You know, Sagittarius has a lot to do with our belief systems, which is very relevant. Jupiter station retrograde yesterday. So there could be an energy around this is something that's important to me to vocalize. It makes me feel diminished when you say this. And it's not just that you're saying it now, it's the rich history of you made a snide comment here and you had a side eye here. It's like sometimes when something's built and layered so much, it has to be said so that it doesn't turn into passive aggression or even misunderstanding. Have you ever had that around had this whole frustration over something that you fundamentally misunderstood or something that you projected or something that you assumed, or even vice versa if someone's done that with you? And it can be really helpful to clear the air, to be honest, especially if you're building up this whole story within. So it's situation to situation, case by case. My encouragement today would be mindful with your words. The Leo moon will trine Chiron in Aries at 4:11 a.m. And then the Leo moon goes on to square Uranus in Taurus at 3:29 p.m. PST. Keep in mind, Uranus is recently in Taurus. You can catch up on last week's Magic Monday episode to get the full tea on that. But what you need to know, especially with this landing within a 15-minute window of Mercury and Mars aligning, is that some people could catch you on the wrong day and on the wrong moment. Like you could find that you are feisty, mouthy, opinionated, perhaps overly so. Moon square Uranus subverts expectations. It defies convention. So it could be an energy to rebel around, you don't understand me, you don't get me. Like Leo moon wants to express ourselves and be seen and be visible. And with Leo moon squaring Uranus, there could be an energy around who you think I am is not who I am. And I don't fit into the mold of who you think I should be. And something random could frustrate you or make you feel misunderstood. You could drive through fast food somewhere, and when at the final window they hand you 3 forks, you could get very offended personally and be like, what? You think this is too much food for just one person? And the person's like, I don't know. I just wanted you to have forks. Like sometimes, especially if we are feeling a bit triggered, we could be more reactive if there's been past experiences that it's layered on. And with the moon squaring Uranus, you could just not want to be told what to do, how to be, and you may be more inspired to correct the narrative if you do feel misunderstood in some arena with Mercury on Mars. I do want to say with all this mental energy, putting into a workout, putting into project, writing, communicating can be very powerful. You may need to literally burn out energy in order to like rest or feel still. And that could be like writing a lot, creating a lot of content, working out a lot. Like there could be an energy to fully burn out all of your energy in order to like rest. And with the moon squaring Uranus, you could feel distracted, restless, all over the place, all this mental energy, not sure where to put it. It will help when the moon enters Virgo at 3:52 p.m. PST. And I say help in terms of like focus and being productive and doing one thing at a time, especially with the Virgo moon answering to that Mercury Mars alignment. It can be very fiery, very productive. So it helps in that arena, but it's also treacherous in some other arenas that we'll get into with tomorrow's forecast. On Thursday, November 13th, the Virgo moon will square Mercury and Mars in the early hours. So like I said yesterday, you may have had to like burn off your energy in order to rest. You could have felt very restless at night. You could have felt very anxious. You could have had a hard time sleeping. You could wake up on the wrong side of the bed. You could wake up in a bad mood. Like I said, people can catch you on the wrong day. And you may catch other people on the wrong day. This feisty energy could absolutely go both ways. You could feel really sensitive to criticism today. You know, that can be really infuriating when you try to be perfect, when you try to do all of the things, and yet you still get criticized. You still get told that it's not good enough, that your hair and makeup aren't done enough, whatever it is. It's like, I'm trying over here. I did all of the things. I'm trying to keep all of the arenas of my life going, and yet there's still room to be criticized. Like sometimes it can make us very defensive. Like I said, people could be very honest this week, and some of their constructive criticism could be helpful. Again, we've got to listen to learn. We do not learn when we are talking. Listen as much as you are talking. It could hurt our feelings around, wow, you think I don't look good without makeup? Or wow, you think that this report could have been better, or that this could have been better. It can hurt our feelings, but sometimes there is wisdom there. And so it's important not to be defensive or overly sensitive to criticism. Sometimes we can feel like how we're doing is who we are, and they're separate things. And what I mean by that is that you are not defined by how productive you are. You are not defined by how good your project was or how good your makeup is. Like those things, yes, they're parts of you, but it's not the definition of you. And sometimes when we're defensive, we can feel like someone is fundamentally saying, you are a horrible person, you are awful, when in fact they're just critiquing our work or critiquing our hair and makeup. And so it's important to separate that. Again, I do think that there's a line between being helpful versus being cruel. And some people may overstep it this week, but it's important not to be overly defensive or reactive to any sort of criticism that comes through. The Virgo moon sextiles Venus in Scorpio at 7:47 a.m. PST, which is a reminder that you should only take criticism from people that you would take advice from. Like, a lot of people could have a lot of opinions this week. They could be mouthing off about how you could be doing this better and how you're so this or you made this mistake. And it's important to really honor whose perspective you genuinely and deeply care for. And this could even be showing up within your personal life around, there might be certain family members at the dinner table whose perspectives you value more than others. There might be certain individuals that you guys are not on the same page as it relates to your belief systems. But there might be certain individuals where it's like you really strive to see each other eye to eye and there really is a deep connection there. And maybe that's someone that you would listen more so to if it was someone who was voicing concerns about you or your life or your decisions. And so the Virgo moon sextile Venus in Scorpio could be honoring that, especially off the heels of the Virgo moon squaring Mercury and Mars in the morning time. But there's also an ask to find pleasure in what it is that you do, like ground yourself in the present moment, find pleasure in the act of doing a good job or being the best that you can be or doing the best that you can and taking any sort of critique to heart and just striving to do better next time, using that information to evolve and grow. On Friday, November 14th, the sun is in Scorpio and the moon is in Virgo. And if you're familiar with the intricacies of these signs, you know that both signs have themes around control. They want to feel somewhat in control of this experience. And so sometimes it can show up in trying to control the uncontrollables and know the unknowables. And there's an ask with this energy to find grounding and soothing around what is in your control. You cannot control the world at large, but you can control whether this drawer is organized. You cannot control what's going to happen at your work review next week, but you can control how prepared you are for that meeting. You cannot control every element of your health and the recent lab results that you got, but you can control whether or not you take your doctor's advice on using those supplements that they recommended. There's an energy where, yes, it could make us feel very unstable when there's so much that feels unknown and uncertain, but there's an ask to tune into one thing at a time, what it is that we can show up for, what it is that we can control. You know, Virgo in the tarot is the hermit, and you may be in your hermit era this weekend. We are preparing for next week's Scorpio new moon. And so the waning crescent moon, oftentimes we can feel inclined to come inward, to release, to introspect. So that may be the vibe carrying into your weekend. Be mindful when it comes to the plans. Spend time with people who make you feel really safe and free to be who it is that you are fully and authentically. We'll get into that with the Scorpio sun trining Jupiter. But other encouragements around your Friday, the Virgo moon sextiles Jupiter in Cancer at 4:09 p.m. PST. So this could be a day that you feel really productive and you feel really good about it. Like you leave the office and you're like, things were handled. I got ahead on this. I was proactive on this. I feel accomplished. Now, keep in mind, Mercury's retrograde, so there could have been technical difficulties and mishaps, many of which were outside of your control. But having that moment of pride around doing the best that you could within the day, not navigating potentially all of the obstacles, which is also represented by the Virgo moon opposing Saturn in Pisces. There could be something that feels hard. There could be something that feels heavy. There could be something that feels dense at this particular moment in time. On Saturday, November 15th, the Virgo moon will trine Uranus in Taurus. That lands around 1 a.m. And then the moon will enter Libra at 1:44 a.m. PST. So as I mentioned yesterday, we're in the waning crescent moon phase, which sometimes can make us want to be in solitude. But there really is an ask, especially with Venus in Scorpio, to prioritize the quality of connection rather than the quantity of connection. You do not need 30 best friends. You just need 2 real ones. And that's not me shading anyone who has 30 best friends. Live your best life. But it's like, it's knowing that number does not supersede intimacy. Like the biggest thing is to have people in your life that see you as you are and where you can show up to them in any iteration of self, whether you're messy, whether you're sad, whether you're not wearing makeup, whether your hair is messy, whatever it is, being able to go as you are. You know, there's some people, especially if you feel like you have to be fragmented around them, you have to perform around them. Spending time with them can be very draining. And the Libra moon is around connection and harmony and collaboration, but being around those people that you don't feel drained after spending time with, because you didn't have to play a performance. You didn't have to pretend to be something that you were not. You just got to show up as you are and feeling the power and the depth in that with the Libra moon trining Pluto. There is an energy where you could be feeling flirty, communicative. The Libra moon will sextile the Mercury-Mars alignment. Separating now, getting further and further because they are moving in opposite directions. So the Libra moon will sextile Mercury at 9:40 a.m. and then it will sextile Mars at 6:16 p.m. So expect in the morning time there can be chatty energy, communicative energy, but again, favoring depth, secrets, intimacy, people who really see you as you are. And then in the evening time, you could have a random inspiration to do something new, do something adventurous, do something you're passionate about, or someone that you're passionate about. On Sunday, November 16th at 9:08 p.m. PST, the Scorpio sun will trine Jupiter in Cancer. Now, keep in mind, when it comes to our forecast, I tell the story of the cosmos from Monday to Sunday. But I do want to highlight that tomorrow, early Monday, the Scorpio sun will also trine Saturn in Pisces. So technically, this is part of the grand water trine that is aligning in the cosmos. But to hone in specifically on Sun trine Jupiter, which lands in this week's forecast, Sun is around our ego, our identity, our I am energy. And the trine to Jupiter is around confidence, showing up as we are. Jupiter's retrograde, so reflecting on our own belief systems, our own morals, our own ethics, and feeling more inspired to shine as we are, to show up as we are. Knowing with the sun in Scorpio, it's not for everyone. You know, Scorpio can be an intense sign. It could be an extreme sign, but it's finding that sense of confidence that is around, I don't need you to like me. I don't need you to understand me. I don't need you to validate me. I understand me. I like me. I validate me. And that makes you the most magnetic of all. And it's building a life around that. It's not feeling like you have to fragment yourself and separate yourself into different versions of yourself. It's giving yourself permission to show up as you are, even if that's different than how other people would choose to live their lives or express themselves or create themselves. And with the energy of Scorpio sun trining Jupiter in Cancer, it's also just knowing to the depths who you are and what you've overcame. You would think we would all be our own biggest cheerleaders because we know the hard days that we did not want to get out of the bed, the challenges that almost took us out. Like we know the ins and outs of this experience, yet still we're so hard on ourselves. Like it doesn't make sense. And with the Scorpio sun trining Jupiter, it's also a reminder of resilience, that you got yourself through those hard days, those challenges, those obstacles. No one can take that from you. There's certain confidence around knowing who you are, what you've overcame, and standing within that. You have survived 100% of the challenges that you have navigated. 100%. That is 100% success rate. And you're out here shrinking yourself in order to fit into other people's molds of who you should be? Absolutely not. You know yourself in your darkest days, in your hardest days, in the challenges that people would never assume when they look at you. You know the ins and outs of that. You've had to be stronger than anybody would give you credit for. You have gone through days that were so bleak, that were so challenging, and here you are, listening to this episode of Magic Monday. You are a freaking warrior. Start acting like it. Seriously, hold your head up high. Remember who it is that you are. Sun trine Jupiter wants you to remember that. And it's also knowing the esoteric knowledge, the occult knowledge, the intuitive knowledge, and allowing that to make you feel inspired as you progress forward. The religious institutions, the yoga classes, like those things that just are soul food, that feed your soul, that make you feel nourished in the crevices and the parts of yourself where you felt like you had to hide or you felt misunderstood, to feel seen from a soulful perspective, from a spiritual perspective. There also could be something like that woven into your Sunday. So my loves, that is our week. The Magic Monday mantra of the week is, I am proud of who I am. Pride is an interesting theme this week because the last quarter moon in Leo could be around releasing pride, shedding pride, as we prepare for next week's Scorpio new moon, knowing that when we are evolving, when we are transforming, oftentimes ego is something that we release because the ego likes to be right. The ego likes to feel like we are in control. The ego likes to be good at what it is that we do. And sometimes when we are evolving and our life is evolving and we're trying something new, we're moving into a new era, our ego feels threatened because it's like, I don't know if I'm going to succeed here. I don't know if I'm going to slay here. I don't know if I'm going to be right all the time here. An ego-based life will make us resist the transformation that the soul wants us to move towards. So it's not overly existing pride energy. It's recognizing where sometimes ego and pride can hold us back a bit. Yet there's also an ask this week to be proud of you, of what it is that you have overcame, what it is that you have accomplished, what it is that you have survived. And to genuinely hype yourself up in the arenas that other people maybe haven't applauded you for. Like, you did that. You broke that generational cycle. You cut out that bad habit. You walked away from that toxic situation within your life. Like, you did that. And it's hyping yourself up in that and being proud of yourself. Because a lot of times ego and pride want other people validate me, tell me I'm good, tell me I'm enough, tell me I'm this, I'm that, tell me you get me, tell me you understand me. Whereas being confident in yourself, you don't need that. Like, it's great when people understand you and applaud you and celebrate you, but you celebrate yourself. You applaud yourself. You know who it is that you are, what it is that you create, how it is that you show up. You know your heart, and no one can take that from you. So if no one's told you this week, I'm telling you, I'm proud of you. You've got this. Be mindful as you navigate the week. Don't get yourself into unnecessary beef. If you made it to the end of this forecast, go ahead and comment below the dog emoji or the paw print emoji as just a reminder to be mindful where it is that we are barking, where it is that we're yapping out in the world. I want to give another shout out to the Luskin Orthopedic Institute for Children in alliance with UCLA Health. That is a mouthful. If you feel inspired to donate as well, I have dropped the link below, but just know, just by being here, the ad revenue generated from this video go to this cause. Thank you again for nominating this one, and please make sure to vote for the poll for next week as part of our Galactic Give Backs. But until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay magical.